This episode is sponsored by Evolve Bootcamp, my outdoor functional fitness program that delivers a sense of warmth, friendliness, and spirit, along with butt-kicking, hellishly fun-filled workouts that embody a caring attitude, evoking the idea everybody that exercises outside has no boundaries and naturally evolves. Class begins at 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mention this podcast and come by for a trial class at the Boston Common if you dare. Welcome to the Evolve WMMA podcast featuring the greatest upcoming female fighters on the planet. They are women who have gone against conventional thinking to pursue their dreams. These fighters inspire, empower, and unleash excellence within a new generation of female athletes as they rise and evolve into the best possible version of themselves through the power of mixed martial arts. Hey, 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 this is Evolve WMMA, and I'm your host, Shelley Devine. So I'm really excited to share with you all. It seemed like a last minute thing. I know for me, it was a last minute thing to find out about. Well, Invicta FC 54 is coming here to Boston, my hometown. So some of you folks may have been following mixed martial arts or MMA since it began with the Gracies some 20 years ago. I know we have a huge following here in the Boston area and in New England. And you've watched its evolution from being perceived as cockfighting to a blood sport to becoming an actual recognized global sport. And some of you may even remember, when Dana White came onto this scene and started the Ultimate Fighter show. And years later, he swore that women would never enter the cage. Well, I think when he stated that, it was some 11 years ago. And since then, Invicta FC began, thanks to the progressive vision of Shannon Knapp. And today we see more women making a career in sports, and we're here to stay. So having Invicta come to Boston is yet another milestone in the journey of mixed martial arts. I mean, geez, it took 11 years for them to actually have a live show in Boston on October 27th at the House of Blues. It's the first time here in Boston, and I'm thrilled and excited to see this happen and hope it will inspire more young girls and boys too. But I'm for the girls. I'm rooting for the girls and female athletes. And I'm so honored to have the opportunity to speak with some of these fighters. And this show, as well as several ones that I'm going to be pushing out this week for your enjoyment to listen to and catch up with some of the new fighters that have come onto the scene. I would say it's like the next generation. So my next guest will have her first title defense as Invicta FC strawweight champion, colliding against Polish challenger Karolina Wójcik. Both fighters were in action last March at Invicta 52, with McCormack making history as the promotion's first Irish champion by dethroning Brazilian Valesca Machado after 5 hard-fought rounds. Wójcik, on the other hand, edged out Brazilian Adriana Silva in the co-main event and became #1 title contender. So both females, both fighters, will be making New England MMA history in the first all-female card as they face off in the main event. How exciting is that? Here in Boston at the House of Blues on October 27th at Invicta 54. So big shout out to Shannon Knapp and the staff at Invicta for making this happen. We're super excited to have you here in Boston. I'd like to welcome to the show Invicta FC strawweight champion Danni McCormack. All right, hey, welcome to the show, Dani. I'm so pleased to have you here on such short notice and so excited that you're coming to Boston the end of the week. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on.
Congratulations on being the world champ. First world champ for Ireland. I mean, that must have been tremendously exciting for you to bring that home. What was it like bringing that home to your team at Straight Blast Gym in Ireland and Dublin, and then just everybody else around that, what was it like?
Yeah, it was surreal. Like my coach loves like firsts, so he was saying all camp that you can emulate records, but you can't. You can only be there can only be one first. So he said he was saying all camp that I'm going to be the first Irish Invicta World Champion, and I just like I didn't want him to keep saying it because I was like, oh God, let me win it first, and then we'll talk about it. So yeah, it meant a huge pile for Straight Blast Gym and for my coaches, and then for myself. All camp I was thinking, imagine if I won, and then when it happened, it was just surreal. It was like one of the proudest moments of my life. So yeah, I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, your post fight interview was very cool and very emotional. It strikes a chord, and I guess I'd like to touch a little bit on that and how you were feeling, because you were saying, you were always trying to prove to yourself that you were good enough, and I'm wondering what it is about you feeling maybe not good enough. You're a top level athlete, but what was it that internal dialogue, or what were you feeling up until then, and what precipitated that kind of feeling all along the way?
Yeah, like I guess I'm a very confident person and I'm very fond of myself. I definitely didn't get this far by thinking I was no good or anything like that. And I'm always in my own corner. But when I said that, I suppose what I really meant was that was I going to be good enough to be a world champion, to be the best, to live up to what I wanted for myself. So
Wow.
since I was very small, little girl, I always like had big dreams and aspirations of what I could do. And
Uh-huh.
my mum would even say now that I was such a dreamer back then that I wanted to be everything. Like one day I wanted to be a fireman, and next day I'd want to be something else. And I always thought there was going to be great things for me and that I could achieve those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose at 33 years of age, when I had a number of things that didn't work out exactly like that,
Mm-hmm.
that this was kind of one of my last chances, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or one of my last big opportunities to prove to myself that I wasn't just a regular person. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Right.
Regular
No.
people are totally cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I since a small girl, I wanted to do something special, and yeah, I was starting to think that it wasn't going to happen, and then I finally got to prove to myself that all of those years weren't wasted thinking about it and
Wow.
motivating myself and working hard.
Wow. That's such a, I mean, I would think that's going to resonate with a lot of individuals, either fighters or athletes, but even beyond anybody that's an athlete and they're trying to figure themselves out. It's like, what's life all about? What am I doing? And I'm pursuing this because I love it, but I'm like, am I ever going to be like, special in any way, shape, or form? Am I going to reach the pinnacle of what that is? And then once you do, now you got a target on your back.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be headhunting you now because they want what you have. So how does that, I mean, like, you have a big fight coming up here in Boston. It's your first title defense. And okay, with everything that you just said, now it's like this is another first for you, another part of being a champ and measuring up. How do you approach that?
Yeah, like I guess to make it happen for the first time was incredibly special, and but by actually doing it, it gave me like this new lease of life and confidence, and I really don't care if there's 20 or 30 girls that want what I have. I don't think about them. I always just think about myself. Like, I am my biggest critic and I'm my biggest opponent. If I can show up as confident and as prepared as I know I am, then the only thing that's going to stop me is me. So yeah, this fight isn't about defending. I don't like the words defend. I'm not defending anything. I'm showing why I'm the champion. So this is about me being a world champion now and what that looks like. So yeah, I'm not scared about who's outside the gate trying to bang it down. It doesn't bother me.
Wow, I love that mentality. That you couldn't have said it any better. That is awesome. So you had mentioned your coach, and when you went back and now you're discussing you being, the champion, how does he approach that? And how is your training, or has it stayed the same, or has it changed?
I've definitely gotten better. So, like, I hear people say all the time that when you become a world champion, you become like 30% better, or whatever percent they've decided to put on it. But I don't know what percentage I've got better, but I know I've gotten a lot better. And that's definitely mental and not physical, because it's too short of a period of time to make huge physical gains. But mental gains, it has been, it's done more for me than what I've done for myself in the last 6 years from all the fights I've had. So I suppose I train in the gym now with confidence. I'm a champion and I present myself that way. And I don't feel as self-conscious anymore if I make mistakes or things don't go right. I don't feel as self-conscious because I don't feel like I have to keep proving myself, because I've proven myself in March. So it's okay to slip up in training and not think that that's going to be detrimental to what happens next, that's just a part of the process. And then from my coach's point of view, my husband treats me the same. He's one of my coaches. He treats me the exact same, except he tells me like at least 2 or 3 times a week that it's so cool that I'm the world champion, and that, he's so proud of that for me. Yeah. And then my other coach, John, he calls me a champ all the time now. And he kind of slags me about it a bit if I'm late for training. He'll say, oh, the world champ doesn't have to show up on time or whatever. So it's kind of a joke, which is good. I like keeping it lighthearted like that.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, how did you get involved, or when? How old were you? When did you get involved in martial arts? Has it been a lifelong kind of thing, or was it, were you influenced in a certain way, or how did it all start for you?
So I rode horses for years, from like for the age of 4, and I did that until I was 25, and then I went quite a long way with that. And I competed, with all sorts of different equestrian sports. And I ended up in horse racing. I just kept, I suppose, growing and growing with that sport. And when I got to horse racing, that was when it kind of started to fall apart for me, that I realised that as good as I was at like show jumping and cross country and all those different sports in horses and equestrian sport, when I got to horse racing, I was only really good enough to be a work rider, to ride the horses out at home. I rode in a couple of races, but I definitely wasn't the level of the lads. And the lads and the women ride in races together. There's not many all women races. There is a couple, but it's not really a thing. So for me to compete with the lads, it wasn't realistic. But for me to even compete with the women, there was girls that were a lot more connected than me and a lot better than I was. So at 25, I was really just came to a dead end with that, and I really was not happy and struggling with my mental health at the time. And I just made a decision one day, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to give it up. And that was, how I ended up stumbling upon MMA. So it took me like a year to get out of the horses because I was so engrossed in it. I had like a lot of horses off my own and equipment and stuff that needed to be sold. And it was the only job I'd ever worked. So, I still had to continue working in the horses. But then I downloaded Tinder because of my mental health. I thought, well, I'll get a man and he'll sort out my problems for me. If I can source myself a boyfriend, then things would look better. So I swiped a fighter on Tinder, and that fighter was training under John Kavanagh at the time. And he told me all about MMA. And he, the date didn't go anywhere, but I was really obsessed with this MMA that he was telling me about. I never knew anything about it. So I thought, right, so no horse, no money, no politics, no connections, no anything necessary, just me versus one other person in a cage. I was like, yeah, I think that's for me. So that was literally what happened. I joined the gym the following week, and eventually the horses were gone and MMA was on.
Wow. That is an incredible story. I'm like blown away that you went from horse riding to MMA and knew nothing about mixed martial arts. And I find it really amusing because I did an interview with probably one of your teammates just recently, Dee Begley. And
Yeah.
she was basically, yeah, I knew nothing about it. I had, and I'm like, how could you not know like this was going on in the world? She said, well, in Ireland, we don't, we just, not seeing it on TV. You just didn't see it. So it's amazing to me. You guys started kind of late to start training. And then here you are, on, the most notable platform in the world for female fighters. And you're kicking ass.
Yeah, and like I don't even think I'm particularly special, or I don't think that it's that. I think there's so many girls out there and women out there that have got like athletic attributes and high IQs, and they've got so much talent, but they are probably in other sports, or maybe they're not even in sport. Maybe they're like, I don't know, doctors or whatever. And I think women are so much more coachable and can pick this up way quicker than guys. And unfortunately, MMA doesn't have the greatest rep over here in Ireland, and women are put off by it instantly. So there's, it's not just a Dani thing or a D thing that we were special. I think we were just the ones that happened to fall upon it and then pursued it. I think there's lots of girls here and probably around the world, if they just open their minds a little bit, they could be exceptional at it. But they just don't, unfortunately. We need, I suppose, more Ronda Rouseys, or I don't know what we need, but maybe girls will always want to be cage fighters. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it is okay. So since you're talking about that and getting punched in the face or having somebody, the cage door closes and this is what maybe keeps people like, ooh, wow, like that's too scary. I don't want somebody coming at me like that. That's too, whatever. And after your last, fight, that went 5 rounds, and it was, I mean, your whole face was so swollen. And for people like, who were back at home that must have seen that. I don't know how your mom felt, but she must have been like, oh my God, why is she doing this? Go back to horse racing, and you didn't care, you didn't care. You were like, yeah, I'm like psyched and here, whatever. But what was it like? Because nobody really talks about your recovery afterwards. And I mean, you battled in that fight, and it's like, what did your body take on the day, what kind of discomfort, pain, your face, what did you do to recover? The rest of your body too, aches, pains, tear. I mean, I don't know what it could be, but can you give us a little insight into that side of it after the fight?
Like, I've often thought about this because people ask this all the time after the fight, how does it feel? But I guess it must be similar to like when soldiers go to war and they're maybe on the front line for like 3 weeks or whatever it is. Let's say they're on the front line for a whole fight camp. And after, when they come home, they might have like lost limbs or got hurt or whatever, but they're so happy and relieved that they have gotten through it, and maybe they've won. And the thing that is, I suppose, the big thing is the mental. So all during fight camp, mentally you're trying to prepare for this like shocking thing that's going to happen to your body, that you're going to fight somebody in front of an audience and you could fall flat in your face, or you could be triumphant, and you don't know that. You don't know it till it's over. So you don't feel pain after, you feel elation. You're so happy. And yes, things are like a little bit sore here and there, but when you think I could have, it could have been so much worse, or maybe I could have lost then, or got stopped in like the first minute of the fight, then you don't feel those things. Like, you take anti-inflammatories, you take the arnica, you take a few days off, but really the reality is you can't take the smile off your face, and you take 10 times the injuries to feel that high that you get. Now, when you lose, it's a different story. But the same thing, as painful as losing can be physically, it's way more painful mentally. And yeah, you're probably happy to feel a bit of physical pain to try to get away from the mental pain of losing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what it's like to lose a fight, and what was it like, during those times when you lost, and then had to come back, and then you're preparing for where you are now.
Yeah, my first pro loss was, really shocking. Like, it happened in the Three Arena in Dublin on a Bellator event. I'd had all my fights for Bellator except one fight I had outside of my contract in Germany. Mm-hmm. So I had been thrown in really at the deep end from where I'd go, and fought in front of like 10,000 people in the Three Arena. And this was like becoming the norm. But even though it was the norm and I was fighting over and over again in the Three Arena, mentally I had like huge imposter syndrome, and it was exhausting just to have to constantly walk out to those people and perform. Yeah. So I got stopped in the first round in a Bellator fight like that in front of those people, and it was absolutely awful. And on the night, Conor McGregor was there, and he had been cheering me on during the fight. And I remember him saying to me as I was walking backstage, "You'll get through this, Dani, you'll come back." And I was just so embarrassed. I couldn't even look at him or answer him. So it's awful. It really is. And the first thing you think is, I'm not good enough. And that's kind of where your head goes, that like, you were dreaming, this isn't a reality. That's really as good as you are. And then it's a long process to climb your way out of that hole. And I'm so happy now for it. I'm happy now. I feel like I'd be better at losing now after experiencing that. But, we won't know until that happens again.
Right. I know. Right. And I mean, there's always that, you never know. Like, I mean, you could go in with the best possible training camp. I've seen guys do it, and they've had some like subtle injury that just kept them from, like performing in the fight, like during the fight. And it had nothing to do with any sort of training. It was just like, I'm thinking years ago, somebody had like an ACL partial tear maybe, or they didn't realize it. And they went in and they threw a kick, or they went to step and then they're down. I mean, even Conor McGregor, like he had a couple of one of the fights, and he went and kicked, and he's done. He had previous injuries, whatever. So you just don't know because of all the whole journey getting into the cage. And then that's the pinnacle. And then it's all the down after you've reached that height, and recovering, either win or lose, recovering, and then getting ready back on that horse to do it again. It's so fascinating to me. I like to unpack that whole, you had said earlier, about imposter syndrome. And I've heard that, expression used not just in, say, mixed martial arts, but a lot of people use it, pretending, fake it till you make it kind of attitude. And I'm wondering when you became kind of aware of that going on in your head, and presenting yourself, and how did you overcome that, and what actually is imposter syndrome to you?
Well, when I was an amateur, I don't think I had imposter syndrome, because it was okay then to win and lose, and have experiences and fight good people and bad people, and whatever happened. It wasn't that stressful. But when you turn pro, and especially for me to be thrown into a filled out stadium for my pro debut, where I didn't really get any time to find my feet and to fill myself with confidence through positive experiences of fighting. I didn't have any real evidence in my head that I was ready to be a pro. You think back to your amateur fights, and they're just all so rushed, and they're all so different. You can't imagine that now you're going to go 15 minutes instead of 9, and you've got to stay unbeaten to be, to be regarded, to move on to the big leagues. Yeah. So, when I started as a pro, I knew I had imposter syndrome straight away. Even through those camps, I was like, they all think I'm great. That's the way I always see it. That's what imposter syndrome is to me. They think I'm great, and they think I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But deep down, I'm scared shitless, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm just going to go in and react on instinct. And if it keeps going good, that's great. And hopefully it doesn't go bad. And at no point did I say, you are so good, you are this, you are what people are saying you are. You've bet this girl, you bet that girl, you're doing great. I still thought, they still think something that I don't think. They don't really know that I'm just a regular person, and that I'm not really this professional MMA fighter that can fight at a world-class level. So that went on a long time, really, until my 6th fight, when I was 5-0 going into that fight, and then I lost. And then when I lost straight away, I was like, see, I told you I was just an imposter. I just really...
So it kind of took a weight off your shoulders a bit by losing, right? Like deal with the humiliation. I'm not all that you think I am. And almost like you could breathe again after that, maybe.
Yeah, it took that to definitely take pressure off me, because people backed off then. They were like, well, she's lost a fight now, so we're not going to follow her so much. So I liked that. I liked that I could hide away a bit. Yeah. But also, it took me to lose that fight to realize I wasn't an imposter, which is weird, that no, I made a mistake, and that's okay. And the best people can make mistakes. Yeah. So sometimes when things are going well, you can't see it for what it is until things are going bad. And then you say, well, back then I should never have thought like that, because I was doing so good, and I definitely didn't take it in.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like, and I feel like I deal with this too, is self-doubt, and doubting yourself, whether you're speaking, whether you're acting in a sport physically, whether you're up talking in front of a crowd, or whether you're in a relationship and you're describing something that, you're kind of thinking about, an idea of something, and you're playing it off of somebody, and then they might say something or do something, and then you're like, oh, that, well, you know, like you're self-doubting. And I don't know, I've come to learn, before it used to be, okay, you know, years ago, women are coming up, guys never let us fight. They didn't want us fighting in the same cage or arena. They didn't think women should be doing it. So you're like, oh, am I good enough to be able to do that? There was always this kind of underlying current of being female, that you couldn't do what you wanted to do, even though you wanted to do it, you know, from men, women, and now I realize it's across the board. But back then I just thought it was men against women, and you're like, huh. But now I just feel like it's across the board, and women do this themselves, is this whole self, like, doubt and questioning yourself, when you know deep down, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to be. Why am I second guessing myself? And now that you're a champ and you've kind of gone through that, maybe the humiliation of loss and maybe the pressure of loss, now you're you know, the champ, and instead of defending, I like how you said that before, I'm not defending my title, I'm just showing everybody I'm the champ, and you know, they gotta step up if they want to be the champ. And how do you see that playing out, you know, this week, as you lead into, you know, your next fight? You're stepping in the cage and approaching that. Do you still deal with that self-doubt, or no?
Like any fight camp, any fight week, every day that gets closer to having a fight, you know, your brain does so many gymnastics, you know, every hour you think about it, you can't help yourself. And the closer it gets, the worse it gets. You think about it like 3 times an hour. So no matter what, like, matter how many fights you've had. So I had 9 amateur fights, I've had 9 professional fights, I've had 18 fights. You'd think that this would just be a breeze, but it's not. It's the same camp, it's the same fight week, but I'm just, I suppose, better at listening to the thoughts and recognizing that this is just something that happens, and not to give it a lot of headspace. If I could stand up right now, put my gloves on and fight right this very minute, I would. You know, it's having patience. Like, I'm not scared of the fight, not one bit, not one bit. And what I really, really care about is the fight. I really care that I perform and that I can reach my full potential and that I can do everything that I plan to do or that I want to do in the fight. And if things get hard and things get tough, that I meet adversity head on, and that I push through and never give up. And these are the reasons why I'm doing this sport. So if I could get rid of now Sunday afternoon in Ireland to Friday evening in Boston, I would. I'd just fast forward this as quickly as possible. But the reality of anything that's really important to you that's coming up is that you have to go through this patient time where you feel nervous, you feel anxious, and that's because it means so much to you.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I'm feeling for the fight. But in terms of, am I good enough? Yes. Am I well enough prepared? Yes. Do I believe I have the skills to continue to be the champ? Absolutely. I have all of those things. I just have to, unfortunately, wait another week or another 6 days or 5 days.
Yeah. Wow. So your opponent is Karolina Wójcik, and has anybody said this to you? You guys look like you could be like twin sisters.
You know, if you've seen us in person, you wouldn't think it. I think it's just the fight photos. Yeah, Invicta took both those pictures. So like, they got us to stand the same way and they had the same light and the same background. So I think it was just the way the light hits our face. But we've known each other for years. And if you stood beside the two of us together, you'd see we don't actually look anything alike at all. Right. She looks very Polish and I look very Irish. Sure. But yeah, the picture, everyone said that about the picture. But yeah, we fought 6 years ago in the UK as amateurs, and she bet me then, and this is the rematch. So that's the really exciting part of this fight.
Oh, it'll be so different, right? Wow. Are you excited that it's a rematch, and maybe like you're going in and you're like, yeah, well, this is different now. I'm the champ, honey. And going in and getting vindicated yet again.
Yeah, it definitely like is an added bonus, that I get to like redeem myself. That
Yeah.
I thought I won that night, which looking back, I don't think I did, but I really felt like I was trying to win the fight and she was trying to stay away from me. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot different now. I grapple now. I didn't grapple at all back then. And I would say one thing though is the best I've ever seen her fight was the night she fought me, because she had to fight me, because I don't let people away with not fighting. And I don't think in the last few fights she's actually bit down in a mouth guard and fought. She's kind of avoided the fight. So I think one thing that will happen is that she'll have to fight me again, and that'll bring out the best in her. Yeah. But there's a weird thing about a rematch. When you haven't touched someone or put your hands on them ever before, you have like a gremlin in your head that thinks they're going to be superhuman. But then when you grab them first in the fight, you're like, oh, you're just a normal girl like everyone else. Right. But when you've grabbed them before, it's not as nerve-wracking. I fought one other girl that I trained with before, and I knew when I grabbed her back then that she wasn't stronger than me, and Karolina the exact same. So it actually makes me a little bit less nervous knowing that she isn't superhuman, that I've fought her in a really close fight years and years ago. So, but again, I don't want to get cocky or overconfident. Sure. I still have to mind my P's and Q's and get this job done.
Right. There's a level of intimacy when you're in the cage. You really, you feel your opponent. So you already kind of, you two have already been in bed together, and you kind of know all those little nuances because you've already fought her, as opposed to the other one. It's like, no, that you weren't in the cage with. It's like dating. It's like, oh, I don't know where she's going to go. And then you get, oh, well, so it's interesting that you started all this with Tinder. That's all I had to circle back to that. And the whole ploy of intimacy, getting in the cage with somebody else, there's so much that goes on in there that you find out body wise and vulnerabilities and stuff by striking or wrestling or stand up to the ground. You get all the you sense somebody, you can see it in their eyes whether or not they're like afraid or they have a moment of like snap out of it, or there's just so much going on in there. It's just amazing. So it's interesting to hear your perspective about like getting back into the cage with this rematch with her. I wouldn't have thought of it, but you had stated it really very well about how that is. So tell me, who would you say played a meaningful role in your life's journey that influenced you in a positive way, either in in martial arts, to get you to this point? And it doesn't necessarily have to be martial arts. It could be, anybody else outside of that. But who would you say has influenced you?
Definitely my mom, 100%. I've got amazing men in my life now, actually, which is weird. I've got mainly male influences in my life at the moment. But mom was with me all those years ago when I wanted to be everything and anything and all of it together. And I definitely was born a bit like that, but then she really developed that sense of you can do anything in me. She used to tell me and my brother, you can do or be anything you want to be in life. And I like to add on there, but you must work hard. But she never actually used to tell us that. But that is definitely a part of it. So we used to come home from school and she'd sit us down and ask us how our day was and what was wonderful about it and build us up. And anything we said or suggested that, you know, we wanted to do or whatever, she told us, absolutely, you can do it. Like, she brought me ballet dancing, and even though I was the worst ballet dancer that has ever stepped foot on in the hall, she used to clap and tell me that I was wonderful and that I was the best one there, and
Yeah.
I believed her.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
she constantly built us up, me and my brother, like that. And that's, I suppose, now she says that that was her goal in life, was us, that we'd be happy and successful, and that's what both of us are. So she said she's done now. She's no more life goals. She just wanted to get us to this part in our life, essentially. So yeah, it's definitely mum. And even now, I talk to mum on the phone every day, twice a day. And even though she's not like, you know, an MMA enthusiast or anything, she's happy to support me at anything I want to do in my life, no matter what it is. She's in my corner.
That's awesome. Do you have can you share a personal habit or a daily routine that contributes to your success?
Yeah. So first of all, in terms of this sport, um, like, I was much heavier when I was younger than I am now. So in terms of this sport, a habit that I have that most people don't do is I do loads of steps. So I walk on the treadmill with the dogs. I do so much walking, and that's so I can be at a competitive weight for my height. I think I'd be in heavier weight divisions, only that I'm so disciplined to doing my steps because I like to eat a lot. So that's a real, like, specific one to MMA.
Mm-hmm.
But the I suppose, apart from like being disciplined and having a good routine, which a lot of fighters have, I'm extremely open-minded to my coaches, and I'm open-minded when I watch fights, and I like to take things from everything that I can learn from. And even now, as a world champion, I'll go in and I'll ask the most basic, straightforward questions to my coaches. You know, and I'm not scared to do that. I'll keep trying to fix things. I'll keep trying to learn, and I don't think I'm an expert at absolutely anything. I always say I'm like a beginner with all of it because I was riding horses for most of my life. So I'm probably not a beginner with most of it now at all, but that's the way I like to approach the sport, is, you know, keep acting like a beginner, in terms of how open-minded you are to asking questions and to figuring it out day in, day out, not just like once a week, once a month. I mean, every single day, ask, you know, I'm in this position and this thing keeps happening to me, help me, tell me what to do. And literally, I'll say, tell me what to do, and I'll just do it. I won't question it. So yeah, that's why I think I could take up the sport so quickly and go as quickly to it as I can, but through my steps and
Yeah.
through my beginner attitude.
Wow. You had stated earlier that you felt women were more trainable in mixed martial arts. Why did you feel like that? What had made you kind of think that, you know, going into a sport that you knew nothing about and you were observing, you know, say the atmosphere in the gym? What made you kind of develop that kind of perspective?
I got that perspective from, first of all, my training partners in the gym, and then secondly, or from being around adult female women in the gym, and then secondly from coaching juniors. So for first, from being with women training, I just noticed that the IQ levels and the awareness and the common sense, it just seems to be a lot bigger than with a lot of the lads. Now, a lot of the lads are younger. You know, most of my training partners are older, so they just seem more mature and more switched on. But the lads, a lot of the time, are more focused on their egos, their looks, what people perceive them, are people, you know, checking them out or watching what they're doing, you know, kind of showing off. Yeah. Whereas girls are just more insecure, so we're more focused on, let's get the work done, let's get a result, and then people will be impressed by me. Whereas the lads, like, I think they get a bit carried away in the training room. And then in terms of teaching, there's a massive difference between teaching girls and boys. And if any of my parents are listening to this, which I'm sure they will, even from a small age, you can see the difference in the intelligence levels of girls compared to boys. And it takes a long time for the boys to catch up with the girls. We've trained girls to be world champions in 10 months in our gym, junior world champions in MMA. But boys would take far, far longer. So, yeah, there is a huge, huge difference with that. So I don't know what the science is behind that. Why? Maybe it's because MMA is a more IQ based sport rather than physical attributes all the time.
Who would have thought that would be said? You know, I'm just thinking years ago, MMA is like blood sport, cockfighting. They had no idea what this actually is. I mean, so you saying that is just so cool. So cool to hear this.
Yeah, and it's the truth. Like I know I'm biased because I'm a woman, but my husband says it all the time. Like he'll say, "Oh my God, we got this new girl in this class," and I don't teach the beginners. And then he'll talk about her, talk about her, talk about her, and next thing I know, in 2 months' time, I'm teaching her in a competition class, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you started 2 months ago, and this girl is like phenomenal." And so my husband notices it too as a male. He says, God, we can turn a girl around in a second, but the boys take a lot more work.
I'm flabbergasted. I don't think I've ever had anybody say that or you know, express it as well as you just did. And I'm just gonna have to keep an eye out for that. That's intriguing. That's really quite a statement. You're probably gonna get some pushback on that one. But
you know what? Do you know what? There is definitely there's a limitation to what I'm saying. The limitation is we treat girls the exact same as boys. If not, we probably treat them a little bit more superior in our gym. And I'm a world champion. There's paintings of me on the door as you walk in. It's not a male dominated gym. It's dominated by a female. And with the girls don't get to sit in the corner whinging, crying, I broke my nail, I have to fix my hair, I don't want to go with this boy. They just don't get that in our gym. And the boys absolutely don't get to say that about the girls either. They can't say, I won't go with this girl. So we treat them like complete equals and we push them together side by side, both genders. And then that's how you transform these kids. But I've seen other gyms where girls are soft and treated soft and they're not pushed and let away with murder compared to the boys, and they don't get the same results as us.
Interesting. That's great. I'm glad you went full circle with that. That's awesome. Can you share us something that maybe nobody knows about you? Although I feel like you did already, but anything that maybe there might be like a little kind of something?
Oh God. Well, I'll try and keep it like more lighthearted. So I love to bake and I love the Great British Bake Off. And I imagine when I retire, I will become a baker. Although my husband tells me you're mad because you'll be so fat. And because I have no self-discipline when it comes to cake. So yeah, I think that my quarter life crisis led me to MMA, and my half-life crisis will lead me to the kitchen and to baking. And I am determined I will get on the Great British Bake Off. I am. I'm going to do it.
Wow. So that would be your that's your after MMA, that's your next plan. Got it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see you there.
Thanks.
That sounds amazing. So let's see. A couple more questions. Who is your favorite female MMA fighter and why?
Oh God. So let me think. Okay, so the truth is my favorite female MMA fighter can't be my favorite female MMA fighter because she's going to be my direct competition. So I think Weili Yang or Yang Weili, I'm not sure what way you're even supposed to say that because everyone says it different, is, you know, she's astonishing. She's like my girl crush in terms of her athleticism, her explosiveness. And I know she's done some like mental training the same as I have. So she's had some self-doubt and things too. So I really relate to her, but I want to fight her and I want to beat her one day. So she can't be my favorite for long. But so I'll say my favorite then is a girl out in Thailand called Stamp Fairtex.
Yes.
Yeah, I trained with her a few years ago, and
Oh.
since then I've been a massive fan. And I don't see her as competition because she'd be an atom weight if she fought in the US because they do hydration tests over
Yes.
there.
Wow.
So she's awesome. She comes from like you should try and get her on, but she might need a translator. She's got good enough English if you took your time with her. But
Right.
her dad was a farmer and they had no money, and he you know brought her in fighting when everyone
That's
was
how
saying,
it goes over there. That's the kids earn the money for the family over there through kickboxing. It's crazy. I mean, like I
yeah,
spent some time in Thailand, so I know. But like, wow, yeah, she's
yeah.
incredible.
And she's turned a lot of that money around for him
Yeah.
and for their family, you know, and he was one of the guys that put a girl in the ring, and everyone else said you can't let your daughter fight kind of thing, and he broke boundaries giving her that opportunity. And her goal in life very much is to provide for her family, and I think that's extremely admirable. You know,
Yeah.
more than any belts, she wants to provide for them, and she's doing that. So
Yeah,
she's my fave.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you brought her up because I actually was recently talking about her last night. She's truly amazing. So how about what fighter do you this is a fun one. What fighter do you love to hate and why?
Oh, what fighter do I love to hate?
Could be
Oh God,
male. Could be male.
it probably will be male. Oh, I find this hard. Like probably Kobe Covington, but like I don't really hate him. I find him irritating. But you know, I appreciate what he's doing at the same time that he's trying to make some money. Do you know what I really hate? But this isn't hate. I hate this isn't hate as in I hate them as a person. I
Yeah.
hate people who have so much more to give and they just won't bloody well go for it, especially women. I hate watching female fighters and I know they're capable of so much more and they just fall asunder in the fight. Like, do you remember when Misha Tate lost her belt after winning it? The next fight after she won, like she
Like what
just
happened?
yeah, she just didn't show up. And so
Yeah.
that's what I hate. I don't really hate anyone. I just hate bad performances. I hate when people don't do themselves justice. I take it personal. I'm like, God, I hope I never do that or that never happens to me. I
Yeah.
hope I always try my best no matter what.
Yeah.
And I know they're obviously going through stuff that's after happening, but that I find that's the hardest thing to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I'd have to agree with that. When you know somebody underperformed and you can tell, especially, I think you can tell more so when you've trained in the same sport and then you see those like, oh, she didn't do her, like it's almost like their due diligence, prior to, during camp or whatever, or preparation for their opponent or whatever. And you're like, what happened there? Or they're underperforming compared to another fight where they were just, like, wow.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with them? They're not right. They're not performing their best possible fight. But I gotta think things ebb and flow depending on what the experience is outside of the cage and outside of training, and that can influence whatever's going on there too. Sometimes we don't know what's going on with a fighter, but it is a really good, strong point, and I like it. Last but not least is what's your go-to pump up song when you're like getting ready to go in the cage?
Yeah, this was another thing I was going to say when you said something that people don't know about you. So I like really cheesy poppy music. I'm not into hardcore rap or hardcore fight songs at all. So there's a band in the UK. Well, they're like retired now, but they were called the Saturdays, and they have this song called Up, and it's really girly and poppy, and it's got a good beat to it, and I replay that song so much that my Spotify says it's my most played song ever. So yeah, I don't know, do the Saturdays even know now that they're like have their own kids and have moved on with their life, that I'm still playing their song.
Well, that's
That's
great.
so
They'll like the shout out if they hear this podcast. They'll be like,
yeah,
everybody's still listening. That's awesome. So
yeah.
you're coming to Boston. You're coming to Boston. And have you ever been to Boston?
No.
All right. So you're Irish. We got an Irish community here. And I had been to the first time the UFC was here, and Conor McGregor fought on that card, and people kind of knew about him, didn't know about him. It was a big fight for his career. It was one that just kind of took him and launched him, and he won. And the place was insane with Irish people singing, I think your national song or something, like going nuts. And so I have no idea how this is going to be. I'm sure there's going to be quite the Irish following that is going to be in Boston rooting for you guys. And then we also have our town, like there's a couple fighters that are on the card that are from New England, but I can't even wait to see. It should be pretty good and pretty feel good for you guys coming over from, across the pond there, so to speak, and coming into, say, Boston. So really,
yeah, I hope people go. Like it's scary for me, like to think, I don't know who knows about me and who lives in Boston, even though there's lots of Irish people there. How many Boston people are into women fighters either? So like it's actually scary for me, thinking I hope I don't walk out and the arena's not half empty, and that like, I fell flat on my face, because Invicta have really pushed the boundaries to get this fight to happen, and it took so long to get it over the line. That's why no one found out about it till kind of the last minute. So
yeah.
they've really pushed the boat out here in terms of budget and stuff to make this happen. So I'm definitely more apprehensive, I think, about that than I even am the fight. That like I hope I am as big enough of a draw that this place will be full, and that that everyone gets behind me. Because Colorado was full, and only like a handful of Irish people there, being mainly my supporters from home, and the place loved me and were like super supportive. So fingers crossed I get the same reception in Boston, that I'm able to fill the stadium, or fill the it's not a stadium, the music theater, I think is what we call it.
Yeah, it looks like it's filling up pretty quick. I looked at where the seats are and stuff. There's not much left, so
Good.
it looks like it's going to be a pretty good show, and I'm excited by it, and I can't even wait to see you guys perform. It's really great to have this happen in Boston. So remind fans where they can find you on social media, and any shout outs to your sponsors. The floor is yours, girl.
Yeah, Desi, thank you. So it's Danni McCormack, and it's Dani with an I on Instagram. And that's kind of the main space you'd find me. And I'm on Twitter a bit now, but not as much as Instagram. So Danni McCormack on Instagram. And then I've got a rake of sponsors that are like amazing. And I suppose the biggest sponsor that's after jumping on board with me recently is the Forge Irish Stout, which is Conor McGregor's brand. So huge thanks to them, and also to Cape Cod in the Boston Peninsula have come on board as well. And then all my other sponsors are with me every camp. And they know who they are, and they always get shout outs. So the two for this camp in particular is Cape Cod and the Forge Irish Stout. So massive thank you to them for supporting me.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Danny. It was really, really great getting to know you better. And I can't wait to see you, like I said, in Boston, and see you perform and have a great night, a great victory. And I'll look forward to seeing you in a few days.
Thank you so much for having me on. You're brilliant. You got this done really quickly after only a few days' notice. So I appreciate you putting the spotlight on me and on Invicta and on the fight night in Boston. So thank you.
I'm so happy that I've been able to do that and get to know all the fighters that I've interviewed. And I can't wait to bang these and pump. I'm going to be like right on pumping these suckers out. But thank you so much for coming on short notice. I really, really do appreciate it. And good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, so wow, right? Did you expect that? Equestrian rider to MMA. I would have never seen that one, but how awesome. What a great interview with Danni McCormack. We wish her the best next week and here in Boston when she comes to defend her title against Karolina Wójcik. And we're really looking forward to this exciting event here coming on October 27th at the House of Blues here in Boston. Thank you so much. So if you enjoyed this episode, leave a review because it helps people find the show. And on the review, mention Danni McCormack and how she might have inspired or motivated you. And if you liked what you heard today and are eager to hear more, never miss an episode from Evolve WMMA by remembering to subscribe or download on iTunes, or you can find us on Podomatic and Spotify at Evolve Women's MMA. Or if you prefer to watch, you can find a new episode on YouTube at Evolve Women's MMA. And go ahead and check out our website at www.evolvewmma.com. And lastly, if nothing else, you can simply follow us at Facebook.com/I love WMMA. This is Shelley Devine. Until next time, thanks for listening.